The Linux gaming scene has undergone a phenomenal transformation in the last few years. The old times of configuring Wine with crossed fingers and all the tweaking hassle just to make a game run on Linux, they are gone. The quality and quantity of games playable on Linux is truly mind-blowing today. Sure, there's a plethora of options for gaming on Linux. Lutris, Wine, Bottles, Play on Linux, and many more. They are great. But let me tell you about the crown jewel, the creme de la creme of Linux gaming, Steam. Now I'm not just talking about the Steam store where you buy games. Oh no, I'm about to blow the lid of the coolest hidden Steam superpowers that will even let you play your Windows games on Linux smoother than butter on hot pan. But that's not all. We're also going to open up the Pandora's box of performance tweaks and hacks that will turn your computer into a gaming beast. We are talking next level stuff here. You don't want to miss that. So if you're a Linux gamer or are even casually interested in gaming on Linux, this is the definitive guide for gaming on Linux, and the best thing, we are going to use the simplest way. Let's jump right in. Why Steam and not Wine, Lutris, Bottles, Play on Linux, etc.? All of these tools are great. They are really powerful and they let you enjoy a wide range of Windows games on Linux. And they are extremely customizable. The different kinds of prefixes, different tweaking options, it gets exhaustive. As I said, these tools are really powerful. But these exhaustive customization options, they can start becoming headaches. The flexibility itself becomes a complexity. With these tools, you will very soon notice yourself spending more time customizing and setting up these tools and games instead of actually playing the games. Steam, on the other hand, just works. It too has all the prefixes and options that these other tools provide, but you're not required to configure and manage all these yourselves. You can if you want to, but you don't have to. Everything works out of the box, even many Windows games. This is what makes Steam appealing, and no, Steam has not sponsored this video. Alright, let's start by installing Steam. Now Steam is available for installation in the App Center here. Steam will be available in the default software stores of all the Linux distros: Ubuntu, Fedora, Arch Linux, Linux Mint, and every other distro. You can go ahead and just install that, no problems at all. But we will be installing Steam by downloading it from their official website. While just installing Steam from the App Center here is the quicker way, Steam officially recommends that you download it from their official website and install it as a .deb. So we are going to do that. And the snap version of Steam on Ubuntu does have a slightly slower startup time, higher amount of RAM usage, and a very large amount of disk space requirement. And while everything mostly works on the snap version of Steam, some people can experience compatibility and integration issues because of the sandbox nature here. One huge advantage of installing Steam as a .deb is the Steam client and games load up faster, way faster. And it is the official recommended way, so let's go ahead and do that. Head over to the Steam website, download, open the download location by clicking here, right click and open a terminal and type in sudo dpkg-i steam and press the tab key to autocomplete the file name. Press enter. Once the installation is done, open Steam from the menu. It will then download the latest Steam runtime and install and configure everything for you. For some people, it may ask to install additional dependencies. If it does, just install those by pressing enter. This may take around 5-10 minutes based on your internet speed. Once Steam is installed, you will see this login screen. You can enter your credentials and hit enter, or you can use the Steam mobile app to scan this QR code and log in directly. Make sure the Remember Me is clicked. Alright, here we are. Let's go ahead and maximize this. This is your Steam application, and we start off in the store where we can buy different games. I don't generally buy a lot of games, but Steam has pretty amazing deals and offers running multiple times a year, where we can get some really cool games for very good prices. And since you get features like Progress Sync and Steam Play, this becomes the perfect gaming destination for many people. We have Euro Truck Simulator 2 for like $3 here. You can browse a variety of games here. I think it's just showing me games which are compatible with Linux. This Steam logo here means that that particular game is compatible with Linux or that game is natively available on Linux. Let's dive into this. Basically, there are 3 big ways of gaming on Linux with Steam. Firstly, you can just play Linux native games. Under categories, click on Steam OS plus Linux and it will take you a dedicated page of Linux native titles. And if you are new to Linux, you will be quite surprised at both the quantity and quality of titles available natively on Linux. Some games here are really top notch. The Tomb Raider series, Metro Exodus, Dota 2, Civilization 6, Total War series, Stardew Valley, Celeste, Counter-Strike to name some. These games are available natively on Linux, meaning they install and run absolutely fine on Ubuntu and all other Linux distros without needing any kind of configuration or compatibility or virtualization layers. Buy, install, play. That's all. With Steam Deck becoming more and more popular, many new games are being natively supported on Linux since Steam Deck is powered by Linux. But then, many popular games are not available natively on Linux and they are Windows exclusive. Games like GTA 5, The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, Elden Ring and many more. For example, this one, Black Myth Wukong. This title has really stolen the show. I mean, everybody's talking about it. And as you can see, it's a Windows exclusive. But Steam provides a great way of playing these games on Linux. We need to enable Steam Play for that. Open up the Steam settings, click on Compatibility, and here you'll see 2 things. Enable Steam Play for supported titles and enable Steam Play for all other titles. We need to enable this. Steam Play installs pre-configured prefixes of Proton, which is a derivative of Wine, and this lets you play Windows titles on Linux. And this is objectively the simplest way of playing Windows games on Linux. Now, yeah, technically you can just go to Windows games, buy them or install them from your library and play. But there is a big disclaimer. Not all Windows games work perfectly fine on Linux with Proton. This is a near perfect system, but not a perfect system. Many games work absolutely perfectly in my experience. Some games might have performance or other issues during gameplay, which is rare. And some games might absolutely refuse to even start up. But we have a great community curated list of games that work fine and games that don't work fine, which we can refer before buying games. ProtonDB is your best friend if you want to game using this method. Open up a browser, search for ProtonDB, click on Explore. We can search for different games here or you can just browse around. Let's go ahead and open up a game. Here you have different tabs. Let's select PC. And you can see community contributed reports here along with their specs and drivers and kernel information. You can read the reviews here and see if a game works fine or not. These games also get a verified collective badge here. Native obviously means the game is available natively on Linux. These don't need Proton to run. Platinum means the game works out of the box with Proton, launching properly with performance comparable to native Windows version, no tweaks required. These are almost identical to Linux native games in terms of your experience. If you do buy games on Steam, you should get Platinum games. Then we have Gold. These games work perfectly with Proton but need some tweaks or manual configurations. These tweaks are generally shared here in ProtonDB comments. Then we have Silver. The game runs, but with minor issues that may affect the performance or the gaming experience. But these are still playable overall using Proton. But I generally steer clear of them. Bronze is for games that technically start on Linux but are seriously unplayable. Don't go near these games on Linux. Finally, Balk means these games don't at all work with Proton. Always refer to the ProtonDB page before getting the game on Steam. Better safe than sorry. And many times there will be some minor customizations that you'll need to make the game run fine. That will be mostly selecting a different version of Proton, but there's a lot more you can do here. That part is really interesting. We'll get into that in a bit. Let's go ahead and search for a game. This is one game that I absolutely enjoyed playing. It's not natively available on Linux. It's a Windows exclusive, but it is Platinum rated on ProtonDB, which means it works absolutely perfectly with Steam Play. I'll just show you in my library. I can just click on install and this game will install and run phenomenally, and the performance is great. Proton is not a virtualization software like VirtualBox. You're not running games inside a Windows virtual machine inside a Linux installation. Rather, Proton is a compatibility layer. In very simple terms, it basically adds support for Windows instructions on Linux. I've played many games with this and very honestly, I never actually had to face any kind of issues. And the performance is really something that you'll enjoy here. Many people will agree with me. The performance of some games played like this can be better than the performance of the same game on the same machine running Windows. Yeah, I don't know how it works, but it's just like that. Remember, like a game, check out the ProtonDB page, buy a game, install with Proton, and enjoy the game. By the way, if you haven't already, check out my course Linux Mastery Express. I've designed this course to level up your Linux skills very quickly. With this course, you'll get so comfortable using the terminal commands that your friends will think you're a Linux wizard. You'll get perfect with the most used, most useful commands and also learn advanced things like using the V-editor and shell scripting as well. Linux Mastery Express, link in the description, do check it out. If you have your own Windows game disks or game files, you can still play them using this method. Yeah, you can add your own non-Steam games that you have not bought from Steam here and still utilize the Proton layer and play them easily here. There are two parts to this, installing the game and playing the game. Now make sure you enable Steam Play for all the titles in the Steam compatibility settings. If you have a Windows dual boot and the games you want to play are already installed on the Windows partition, you can directly jump to the adding the game launcher file to the library part. Now let's go ahead and see how to install your own Windows games on Linux using Steam's Proton feature. We will be installing a really fun game called Cuphead here. Before we proceed with the installation, always check the game status on ProtonDB. You can directly do a Google search, Cuphead ProtonDB. You can see that the game is platinum rated. That means this game will work absolutely fine without the need for any tweaks or configuration. As you can see from my Steam library, I generally just buy games from Steam. It just makes things easier. I have borrowed this game from my friend for this demonstration. Alright, let's begin. Open Steam. Click on the cog icon here for additional options. Click on Add a non-Steam game. Click on Browse, then in the file picker, browse to the location of the installer file, something like setup.exe in the game files. Select that and add it. It will be added in your library. Click on it. Click on the cog icon and click on Properties. In Compatibility, check the Force Use option and select the Proton Experimental option. Now sometimes for some games, you need to select a particular version of Proton that game works smoothly on. You can do that here. For the most part, keeping the first option works just fine. Information regarding which particular version of Proton needs to be selected, you will get that info from ProtonDB. Then you can set some additional launch options here. This is quite important for some games. Just note the location. You can do a lot of advanced stuff with this. Steam will download the Proton runtime and all the necessary additional stuff like certain Microsoft redistributables that are needed for games to run. This is going to be downloaded the first time. So yeah, we are going to let it download. Once everything is done, you will see this set of file run. Yes sir, this is a Windows game and we are running it on Linux. Click on OK. And since Cuphead is platinum rated on ProtonDB, there will be pretty much nothing additional that I need to do here. This will just install and run 100% fine. So we are just going to wait here. This is Cuphead Games Installer. Different games will have different kinds of installers that might give you other options like install location, etc., which you can safely click next on. Alright, Cuphead has successfully installed and now I get the option to exit or launch the game. Let's click on launch. And if you get this option here, always launch and check the game once. Yes sir, there you have it. The game has started. You can see Cuphead is running on my Ubuntu. I'm gonna quickly go ahead and play the game for 5 minutes. I'll fast forward. Alright, the game has installed fine and is working flawlessly. The performance is very good too. But there is one more small step that we need to do here. We need to add the installed game's launcher file to the library here so that we can launch it with a click. This file that we added here earlier is the installer file, the file that installs the game and not the file that will launch the game. We have already installed the game, so we don't need it here in the library. So we can click on Manage and hide the file. Make sure you don't click on Remove non-Steam game from library. Doing that will uninstall the game. If you want, you can still access it from hidden games. Now click on Add a game again and add a non-Steam game. Now we need to browse to the game's install location. All the Steam games are installed in a hidden directory, and by default, those hidden directories are not shown here in the file manager. You need to press Ctrl+H to see them and then open .local, share, Steam apps. Just follow along and you will get the game's install location. Make sure to note the location. In the compact data folder, you will see multiple folders here and each will have an array of numbers for name. Right now I have installed only one game, so I will just see one. If you install any game in its default location, it will be inside drive C. You can change that, but by default most games will be installed in drive C. In this location, most games will be installed inside program files or program files x86. The Cuphead game was downloaded from GOG, so it will be in GOG games. Just select the file with the game's name, which will be the launcher file, and click on select. Add selected program and you will see it here. You just come here, go to manage and set the compatibility options just like we did earlier. Give it a few seconds. There you have it. The game launches and you can start playing. And if you have a Windows dual boot and have your games installed in Windows, you can still browse and add the launcher files directly here. You don't need to install the games again. Just like this, and it should work fine. Alright, to quickly summarize the entire process, you can play your own non-Steam games on Linux using Proton. Enable Steam Play for all titles. And if your game's already in your Windows partition, skip the installation and directly add it to the library. First, check ProtonDB for compatibility of the game you want to install. In Steam, add a non-Steam game, select the installer file, choose Proton version and run the installer. Let Steam download necessary files and then run the setup as usual. After install, test the game. Next, hide the installer and don't remove it from your library. Then add another non-Steam game. Browse to the install location, which is often hidden. Use Ctrl+H to show hidden files. The game will be within this directory. Select the game's executable, add it, set compatibility and launch. Now I don't necessarily have what's called a gaming rig. I have a decent workstation and I have a 1050 Ti graphics card. The GPU is quite old. While it can run many new games as well, the performance is not really top notch. But on Linux, we have some crazy tools that let you hack your machine and boost game performance using ingenious technologies. Alright, now let's dive into one of the most powerful tools in the Linux gaming scene. One tool that's reshaping the gaming experience for us Linux users. ProtonGE is a turbocharged flavor of Proton created by Lord Glorious Eggroll. And this version is Proton on steroids. It has patches and tech that even the official Proton might not support. ProtonGE is an absolute game changer for all Linux gamers. Game compatibility is where ProtonGE absolutely shines. It feels as if more Windows games are compatible with ProtonGE than Windows itself. Many titles that may crash or misbehave under official Protons work seamlessly with ProtonGE because it ships additional patches and tweaks that are specifically designed to address compatibility issues with certain games. ProtonGE is also very rapidly updated. Most new and popular games are tested and patched for on ProtonGE very soon. So with ProtonGE, you're not left out to play just older games. Then there's the cherry on top. ProtonGE comes with a lot of extra features that really improve the quality of gaming on Linux. We are particularly interested in AMD's Fidelity FX Super Resolution Tech, which is simply known as FSR. FSR is really cool. Listen to this. It takes a very unique approach, using a spatial form of upscaling technique. Essentially, what it does is, it renders games at a lower resolution, which obviously is a huge performance booster, and we start seeing higher frames per second. Then, FSR upscales those frames back up to your target resolution. Let me give you an example. If you're gaming in 4K, FSR may render the game at 1440p or even 1080p and then upscale them in real time as you're playing the game. So you get that almost native quality without the massive performance hit that comes with running games in 4K. And this is not limited just for 4K. You can do this for any resolution including 1080p. Yeah, If you have modest hardware and you're seeing those frames being dropped now and then, you can start using FSR. It's going to actually render the game in 720p, which boosts up the game performance, but then the game is upscaled and rendered in 1080p. This black magic works because of three important reasons. First one being the quality of output. Quality of these upscaled frames is surprisingly good. It almost feels like it's running natively in that resolution. I game like this. I was upscaling from 720p to 1080p and the quality itself was more than satisfactory. Not as good as 1080p, but I didn't feel the need to go back to absolute 1080p. The experience was actually better because my FPS shot up and the game became butter smooth. The upscaling tech itself has minimal overhead. I think for most games, I was getting around 40% more frames per second. That's almost like getting a free GPU upgrade. The second cool thing about AMD FSR is it works on both AMD GPUs and, wait for it, NVIDIA GPUs as well. And when I say works, it just works without needing any additional configuration stuff. And AMD FSR is also open source. That's your third reason. Now I hear what you're saying. It sounds cool, but how do I actually get it working? For this, we need to download and install ProtonGE first. While there are multiple ways of installing ProtonGE, let's go with the simplest one. We'll use an application called ProtonUp-Qt, which lets you install and manage ProtonGE for Steam using simple GUI options. Let's go ahead and install it first. For all Linux distros like Fedora which have Flatpak enabled, you can directly install it from FlatHub. But I'm on Ubuntu and Steam is installed natively in .deb version for me, so I'm going to download the app image. Once ProtonUp-Qt is downloaded, let's go ahead and open it. We need to make the downloaded file executable, so run this command along with me. Now just double clicking on this file should open up the app image, and it will on most distros. But app images have been having some problem on Ubuntu recently. We need to install Fuse to make this app image run fine on Ubuntu. If it opens up when you double click on it, then you don't need to do this. But if it doesn't and you get this error, let's quickly go ahead and install Fuse. Run sudo apt install libfuse2. Let it download and install. Once it's downloaded, you can either double click on the downloaded ProtonUp-Qt app image file or run it from the terminal itself. Give it a moment to launch and here you have it. When you're installing for Steam, ProtonUp-Qt will automatically select the location where it needs to download and install the files. It's showing my games here. That means it has detected my Steam installation. Click on Add Version and keep GE Proton selected and you can just click on Install here. Give it a moment to download and install ProtonGE. It can take more than a moment. Once it's installed, you'll see this here. Just close this. You need to restart Steam if it's already running. Not just the window, but use the Exit Steam option in the system tray on the top right of your screen. Then, in the compatibility options for games, you will see one more option called GE Proton. This is the version of Proton that we just installed. Select this for all your games. Once you select this, there's actually nothing more you need to do. Just select ProtonGE as the compatibility tool and in the in-game settings, just reduce the resolution. That's it. FSR will kick in automatically and start the upscaling magic. But you have to match the aspect ratio though. In my example, I have a 1920 by 1080 monitor which has an aspect ratio of 16 by 9. So I have to use lower resolutions of the same aspect ratio. For example, 720p. My computer is a workstation, so it does struggle with games at times. But this works for me. Running the game at 720p and upscaling it using AMD FSR. It's actually surprisingly good. If you want to get a bit more oomph out of your computer, definitely try this one out. Also, there are advanced options for FSR where you can control the upscaling quality using launch options in Steam. Link in the description below. There you have it guys, how to game on Linux with Steam. There are many amazing ways of setting up your Linux system as a game station. But Steam is objectively the most comprehensive and simplest way of gaming on Linux. And in this video, we have covered all the ways you can game with Steam. Linux native games, Windows games from Steam, and your own Windows games. And we also touched on some really cool things like ProtonGE and AMD FSR. Alright, if you enjoyed this video, if you found it helpful, definitely consider subscribing to the channel and also turn on the notifications so that you're the first one to catch all my videos. also hit that thumbs up button and talk to me using the comment section below. What's your experience gaming on Linux? Which games you play? Which games you can't play? Yeah, talk to me. I'd love to hear from you. And if you're interested in leveling up your Linux skills, the link to my course Linux Mastery Express is given in the description below. It's designed to teach you Linux and take you from zero to hero within the shortest amount of time possible. You'll be using Linux like a pro within a matter of hours, so definitely check that out. Also, don't forget to check out the top 10 insanely cool Linux terminal apps that you should be using. I got some really cool ones there, definitely don't miss that. Alright, this is Linux Techs signing out.